So the $1 million question, is it a buyer or seller's market in Fife? Now, before we get into the nitty gritty and really pull the figures, let's cue the VT. So, $1 million question, is it a buyer's or seller's market? So this is going to be a great show if you're potentially considering a move in, say, the next 6 to 12 months. Now, we have got some facts and figures in here. Now, whether you watch the show and you want to put any questions in the comments or message us privately, you absolutely can. We would love to hear from you. Likewise, if you want to click the link and you can read through as well, so you can really help reference it. But with today's, we do actually have a graph for you as well to really help visualize it, because there is quite a few figures in here, but some will probably surprise you because they did us when we just had a quick flick through. Whether it be you are a first-time buyer, whether it be you are just looking to move on in your property journey, or perhaps you are a landlord that's deciding whether to actually grow your portfolio or potentially simplify and perhaps sell off a few of your properties. You're probably wondering, and we get asked this question all the time, don't we, Perrie? When is the right time to sell?
Yep.
Is now a good time? Is it not? We get asked that with others. We get asked that question a lot. So this will really help you, and this is the most kind of current, up to date information, and it's relevant to Fife, which is great. And it's all about understanding whether the current property market favors buyers or sellers. And that really is key to making that right call. And we always say this, it's all about making those informed decisions. Don't do anything rash, get all your information, do your homework. And if you don't know, that's fine. But what are you doing to get those answers? So hopefully shows like this will really help you. Especially if you also follow the weekly update. So every Tuesday we do the weekly update as well, which gives you the weekly figures from the previous week. But actually, if you go back and watch last week's, I actually did a monthly roundup for August as well. So that'll help you get a whole month roundup. Because 1 week doesn't make a trend. We do say this. So that'll help you. And this really is about us assessing the market, looking at percentages, and it's about us looking at properties that are now kind of marketed as sold, subject to concluded missives, or under offer, compared to the total number of properties that are actually on the market. So we're going to put it into practice. And for this example, just to obviously kind of give you an idea, let's say there's 400 properties on the market in a specific location, and let's say 300 of those properties are for sale, fully available to buy, they're not under offer, you can still get a viewing. There's then the remaining 100 which are now showing as under offer or sold. Now 100 as a percentage of 400 gives you a sale percentage of 25%. It is this percentage that then helps you strongly indicate the local property market temperature, you could say, or the gauge, and who holds the upper hand, i.e., is it the buyers or is it the sellers, or is it perhaps somewhere in between? And this is where we have like a barometer that really does help you understand the market conditions. But how can they be analysed, Perrie?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've broken it into little camps for you so you get a feel for where we're at and how it might work and apply to yourself. So an extreme buyer's market, so when we look at that percentages that Sophie's just discussed there, the 100 versus the 400 being 25%, an extreme buyer's market is 0 to 20%. A buyer's market is 21 to 29. A balanced market is 30 to 40. And a seller's market is 41 to 49. But then we have the hot sellers market, which is 50 to 59%. And then it goes into the bigger pot, which is the extreme sellers market, which is 60+%. That's probably where we were in 2020, I'd say.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
But it's interesting to see how kind of Fife compares so far this year. So if we look at where we are in 2025, and we're really fortunate enough to have the data that's going to take us up to the end of last month, so August. So if we look at the historical data for KY1 to 12 and then 14 to 16, what we're seeing each month in Fife is some interesting changes. So, you know, the year kind of started off as it ended for last year, pretty steady. So January of 25, for instance, was a 46% of homes that were marked as sold or under offer, and that places that into a sellers of market category. It kind of jumped slightly in February to 48% recorded, still within that sellers market, but it quite increased, as I say, on January. Giving sellers a touch more strength, I guess, in regards to what their positioning was. Then we go into March of 25, and it's sitting at 52% of sellers recorded. So that tells us now, actually, if we look at that example of the breakdown, it's now gone from a seller's market into a hot seller's market at that point at the 52%. April then jumps to 55%, which in that hot sellers market and continues an upward trend, actually, because then we go into May and it's at 58%. Again, you're almost verging on that extreme sellers market when you get to that 58% point. But again, that's sellers market. It's the highest point of the year so far, 58%. So a real strong position for everything to be in. When you think that we're talking about all properties available on websites, 58% of them are marked as sold or under offer. That's a large proportion, isn't it? Then go into June, and that wavers slightly, but again, it still sits at 57. So we're still in that really hot sellers market there in June. July at 55. So again, hot sellers. And then August jumps back up to 56%. So we're seeing the constant improvement. And I would say we've been in that hot sellers market, really looking at these stats, from March until really the end of August, when that was the last full month available to us. So really strengthening since we've kind of come into spring this year, and it hasn't really shown any signs of slowing down either. So really strong trends in Fife as a whole, month on month. So Fife began the year as a seller's market, as we said, but it quickly moved into that hot seller's market. Sorry, I just need to get a drink. I got a bit of a sore throat.
While you do that, I'm going to pull up the graph actually, because I think this will actually really help people visualize this, because you literally can see, as you said, Perrie, where it does kind of from March onwards, peaking into May, and then from June to August, you can see that the figures settled into a kind of narrower band, indicating kind of stability at those elevated levels. And then it kind of does show that Fife has predominantly been a hot sellers market, we could say, for most of the year. Within that, then, that surely means that the sellers have been holding a clear advantage. And that graph and the bars that you can see in the percentages almost answers a $1 million question, doesn't it? Whether is it a buyer or seller's market? Because that does really help you with the barometer at the side, and then the each month, and obviously you can see the percentages. So then the question naturally after that would then be, what does a 56% sold subject included missive to total stock ratio mean for Fife right now? And really, it places the local market in the middle of a hot sellers market, giving sellers that advantage, and potentially meaning that buyers need to bring their A game, and they need to do something to stand out from other buyers out there, because it is absolutely a seller's market. But what would you say it is like for Fife sellers, Perrie?
I mean, absolutely, for me, for Fife sellers, we're firmly in a market where we're seeing patience is a big thing for sellers. I think the presentation of a property is hugely important at the moment. Your presentation is going to be everything for you at this moment in time. I think the correct pricing is a big factor at this moment as well. So pricing matters more than ever now, I think. If we're sitting at that percentages where we're nearly at 60%, you know, that's not far off of nearly 2/3 of all stock that's being sold. So when you look at it like that, that's like 2 out of 3 houses effectively near enough are selling. So I think absolutely it really matters. So if we look at that again, that's your presentation, your accurate pricing, your marketing strategy, which is a big thing. So video work is really important. If you don't have an agent that has that, it could be kind of letting you down a little bit in regards to that, because buyers now have a choice, and they've got a lot of choice. Simply listing your property and hoping for the best will not cut it anymore. You've absolutely got to try and maximize your reach from your potential buyers, ensuring that they're basically able to access you on all platforms at all times within a day or 24 hours. So that's really important as far as your sellers are concerned, because buyers want that facility. They want to have that constant contact. The homes that sell are those that hit the market with that right price point from day one. And I think your high quality photography is a big thing. We did a show on that last week, Sophie, didn't we, when we talked about pricing and presentation. And absolutely, your photography matters. Having clear floor plans is really important. I know that you think about a floor plan and think, well, that's kind of all 1980s, but it's really important. I was preparing today, actually, to go out to do a valuation on a property. And part of our preparation, Sophie, is that we put case studies together, don't we, of comparable properties that have sold in the area. And we're looking to see if we can get ones that are similar square meterage, and we're looking to find out what the £1,000 per square metre sells at. But actually, when I was doing that as well, sometimes it's not always easy to get that information. There's various ways you can do it, but one of the things I like to look at is the floor plan from those comparable properties as well. And I had one today, and I was looking at the floor plan, and I was like, hang on, because I was reading the description, and then I looked at the floor plan, and the floor plan was short of a bedroom. And I thought, so is the description wrong, or is the floor plan incorrect? What's going on here? So really complicated. And if you've got buyers that are picking up on maybe some of that misrepresenting, they get a bit frustrated. And to be honest, they want something done quick, and they want to have it done for them as well. They don't want to have to go hunting for stuff. That's part of the job I was doing today, was to kind of do that homework. Buyers don't want to do that. Buyers want to be able to see it. They want it put in front of them. They want quick decisions. They want to be able to see exactly what they're looking at. So really it is important that that presentation's right and the representation of the property's right. So your clear floor plans is a massive thing for me. Strong virtual tours is really important as well. If you've not got your videos, then you're really cutting quite a big proportion of your services out in regards to the buyers that you may reach as a seller. And we know this from buyers as well, so if you don't mind, because they say to us, by the time I viewed the house, I've probably watched the video about 50 times.
Yeah.
I feel like I've already been in the house, So by that time, they're just kind of coming to see how it feels for them. So that's really important, that you've got that strong social media presence with your video tours too. But also your stretch and your bandwidth of your marketing, whether that's online and offline, to be fair. So it's about making sure that you can capture all audiences on all mechanisms. And that's why for us it's really important. I mean, we talk quite a lot about this, don't we, about our phones, and literally everybody has got a phone, a tablet, a MacBook, something. And they don't necessarily want to go hunting in Rightmove or to Zoopla. They want to be able to just have it come at them quite easily. So I think if you've got a real good structure around that, that's going to really help you as a seller, but also it really helps your buyers as well, make some quick, smart decisions. Because if you don't have all of those things, it can cause you quite a bit of a knock-on effect. So on the overpricing part, for instance, it's the fastest way to lose a sale. Properties that linger usually face price reductions. We call them price realignments, because we've got a different way of marketing it, but price reductions is something that obviously impacts the positive and negatively depending on how you apply them. But it does impact the momentum of a property. And sometimes it can invite lower offers depending on how that's being negotiated. But in some cases, it can even lead to the failure to sell a house, can't it?
100%.
And you don't reach that point of exchange. So getting your launch right at the beginning is absolutely critical. So again, we've done other shows on this, and Sophie and I constantly say it, but challenge, interview your agent and really understand how they're going to market your property. I was at one actually last week, and I've had a couple of email communications from the client today, or potential client today, and they've really done their homework. And the post-meeting information that I sent to them, they clearly read every word about how we're going to structure this, because they were asking questions about what was being said, and that's really important for sellers to understand that, so that they can maximise that buyer's market when we're in this situation. Really, really important. But what does it kind of mean for Fife buyers as a whole then, Sophie?
So for the buyers of Fife, yes, we can say that the market is calmer than, the frenzy of the pandemic in 2021, 2022. So there is a wee bit more time to allow yourself to think and potentially compare, and maybe even think about negotiating. That does not, though, mean that you can perhaps wait indefinitely, or that you can then start throwing in lowball offers. The best homes are still competitive. But what I would say is opportunities do exist if you are a wee bit more open-minded and potentially look beyond the most sought after postcodes. And this is something that we come across. People will start when, they're starting their search and they have their non-negotiables, like the box that, it needs to tick this box, this box, this box, this. It needs to be in this location with this, da, 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 da. And it's not really until you start getting out there and you get a feel for what is out there and start viewing things that potentially your non-negotiables might change. And as well your areas, and you might stumble across an area that you never actually thought of, and it might be an absolute gem, but you've almost had like the horse blinkers on that I need to be in this location, and then you look elsewhere and you go, oh, hang on a second, I've got this on my doorstep now, this on my doorstep now. I've just been kind of brainwashed into thinking I need to stay here. So actually broaden your horizons perhaps, and you might be surprised what else is out there. Also something you need to do, and any good agent, if you are a buyer and you are phoning up to say get a home report or get a viewing, any good agent will qualify you. They'll take all your information, they will qualify you, and a part of that will be what is your position. So don't feel like we're being nosy or like digging into your personal life. If we ask you what's your position, we need to understand that from a couple of different reasons, but also, is there anything that we can do to help? So perhaps if you are a first-time buyer or you require lending, have you got that mortgage in principle? Because firstly, can you actually lend? But secondly, you might be able to lend a lot more than you thought, because people kind of automatically think, I'm just going to contact my bank and go with my bank. They've only really got you one product to offer. But actually, if you potentially go to a mortgage advisor, they have so much more of a market share. They can get you some brilliant rates, potentially some deals as well. So you just never know. But the key really is, have you perhaps got your mortgage in principle? Have you got your ducks in a row? Do you have a property to sell? What are you doing to be in that best position? Or are you just doing no, I'm going to sit and I'm going to wait. I'm not going to go to market until I see the house. That automatically, unfortunately, puts you to the bottom of like the priority list in terms of who's getting through the door first when these properties do come up. And then it's also giving sellers out there confidence that you are actively on the market and you are looking to move, not just perhaps somebody that's out for a wee nosy on a Sunday afternoon because you've got nothing else to do. But really do think about widening your search, looking at your non-negotiables, and making sure that you really are organised. You have all your ducks in a row. Do you have that solicitor ready to help you and back you up with that written offer? Do you have your mortgage in principle? And really get all that detail as well. And I even had this conversation with a client last week. He was like, oh, my budget's this and this. And I said, well, if you go to the top end of your budget, you're actually going into a new stamp duty. So if you do end up going, you think you can afford that, but have you factored in you actually go into a new bracket on stamp duty? And he was like, I never even thought of that. Ooh, and he turned to his wife and he went, we're sticking to the lower end now. And he was like, that's it. He was like, I didn't even think about the stamp duty. And I said, well, there you go. It's all these little things. And he was like, I'm so glad you said that. He was like, because I genuinely wasn't even thinking. I said, well, it's these little things, and it's okay that you perhaps don't know, but this is why you need to do your homework and really do everything to make your informed decisions. Especially as well with, obviously on the 18th, we're going to get obviously an outcome in terms of, base rates, what that potentially looks like. Obviously inflation's rising slightly. So, things that are a little bit squeaky at the minute. There's no certainty. We just obviously need to wait and see. But this is why it really is important that if you are going to be going to market, like Perrie's saying, it's that pricing. It's an aggressive, really proactive agent that is pushing your property out there with the reach. Because something that you maybe haven't thought of is last month only, 50.9% of homes that left estate agent's book ended up being sold and the homeowner moving on. Now you're wondering what happened to the remainder of that percentage. They actually withdrew from the market, or they just haven't sold. So that is a big number of properties that are potentially stale or have actually withdrawn because now circumstances have perhaps changed or things didn't align out for them. And something else that we also have to educate people on is please get out of the mindset that we are still this 15 to 20% over home report like we were in 2022 and 2021. That is not the case anymore. Granted, you get the anomalies that do achieve that, but it's not an average anymore. So you almost need to kind of forget those crazy offers over and be more realistic. And you can go on to Rightmove or Zoopla or even Scottlist and see what properties are selling for. And that'll give you actually an indication of what is being achieved. And this is something we were actually speaking about with Jim last week, wasn't it, Perrie? That yes, people are achieving, they want to get this much over for theirs, but they don't want to pay that much over for the one that they're buying. So it's all like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. Like you need to find a balance.
Whatever yours has gone up by, the properties you're buying are going up by the same amount, aren't they, at the end of the day?
Exactly, yes. So it's all relative, absolutely. But I think based on the back of this, the key thing that we are trying to highlight to you is explore your options, look at your options, understand what your options are. And if you maybe aren't aware because you've maybe not sold in so long, or it's just not something that you're comfortable with, that's where you need to invest in an agent that is a local expert and knows what they're doing and can also point you in the right direction of other professionals. And perhaps even if you're not moving and you're just curious, it's always good to watch these shows. And likewise, we always like to hear from you. So if you have any questions, any case studies, feel free to put them in the comments. But I think that's been a good one and definitely surprised people in terms of what kind of market we are in, because it is a question we get asked all the time, Perrie, when's a good time to sell? When should I go to market?
I think it's really interesting that we've been in that hot sellers market pot for 6 out of the 8 months that we've already been through. And there aren't signs of it really slowing, which I think is important. And I think you touched on it there as well, Sophie. On the 18th of September, the Monetary Commission will be coming together to decide what happens with interest rates. I don't personally think that they'll come down purely and simply because inflation is so high. You know, the target was to have inflation down to 2% by the end of the year. We're currently sitting at 3.8%. And it's not showing any signs of growth. Growth of the country was stagnant as well on the most recent reports. So I can't see that changing much. So to still be in this hot market where we're at, I think is a really strong position for the Fife market as well. But as we said, it's key really for anyone who's considering selling or buying to investigate and do a lot of kind of fact finding for yourself as well. If you do want to read more about the article, because obviously there's quite a lot of stats in here, by all means, as Sophie said, click on the link. All the information's there. But actually, if you've experienced any of what we've spoken about, it's always really great to hear from you too. And that's it from me.
There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Take care.